good, YouTube? It's your boy, Blue Blood Sports TV, back at y'all with another one. So, we know now what's trending is undefeated 3-division world champion, former junior welterweight undisputed world champion, currently the WBO reigning welterweight world champion, who is widely considered by many to be the #1 best pound-for-pound fighter in the world, and Terence Crawford. Terence Crawford is 38 wins, no loss and no draw, 29 big wins by way of knockout. He is 5'8" with a 74-inch arm reach, and he's 34 years of age, be 35 in September. With that said, Terence Crawford, he made it abundantly clear a few weeks ago that if he can't land the mega massive showdown, the most highly anticipated fight in the sport of boxing between himself and his biggest rival to date, an undefeated unified WBC IBF welterweight world champion superstar boxer, who is widely considered by many to be top 3 best pound-for-pound fighters in the world, in Errol the Truth Spence Jr. Errol Spence Jr. is 27 wins, no losses, no draws, 21 big wins by way of knockout. He is 32 years of age, 5'9.5" with a 72-inch arm reach. With that said, Errol Spence is going into a massive unification bout April 16th, Arlington, Texas, AT&T Dallas Cowboys Stadium, against WBA World Boxing Association's welterweight world champion, Cuban star boxer Yordenis Ugas, who is 27 wins, 4 losses, no draws, 12 wins by way of knockout, 35 years of age, 5'9" with a 69-inch arm reach. And so he's pretty tied up. The fight everybody wants to see is Errol Spence and Terence Crawford. And so Terence Crawford, he made it clear that that's the fight he wants. He wants to fight the winner. Obviously, he wants it to be Errol Spence Jr., but he wants to also get the opportunity to fight for undisputed at welterweight. He's already undisputed at junior welterweight. And then he made the comment that if he cannot secure the fight with Errol Spence, then he's going to go up, make himself the mandatory challenger for two-time junior middleweight world champion, unified middleweight junior middleweight world champion, superstar boxer Jermell Charlo, as he takes on WBO undefeated junior middleweight world champion Brian Castano. It was initially scheduled for March 19th. Okay, so next weekend is supposed to be taking place, but obviously that's not going to happen because Brian Castano suffered a torn bicep, so the fight had to be rescheduled to May 14th. And so with that said, now, Jermell Charlo is obviously going to be the favorite. The first fight ended in a draw for undisputed, and many people weren't satisfied. Obviously, Jermell Charlo, Brian Castano wasn't satisfied with the outcome. Okay, so now they want to have a rematch, and they're going to have it May 14th. So Terence Crawford, he stated that he wants the winner of that fight. And seeing as though Terence Crawford is the World Boxing Organization welterweight champion, Terence Crawford can make himself the mandatory challenger for that fight, okay? And so, obviously, that picked up a lot of traction. Now, Jermell Charlo, last night, he did an interview with Brian Custer on the Last Stand podcast, and Jermell Charlo, he addressed, when asked about Terence Crawford and facing Terence Crawford and what he thought about Terence Crawford comments about coming up, he let it be known. He held nothing back, right? He stated that Terence Crawford needs to fight the fighters in his division. He hasn't had a big fight in his career. He needs to focus on the fights that are available in his division. He stated that his promoter, Bob Arum, don't care about him, ain't trying to help him. He stated that he need to focus on a fight with Errol Spence Jr. He stated Errol Spence is a dog, right? So he stated that Errol Spence is a stud, right? He a dog. Focus on that fight. He said, then you got Keith Thurman. You got Jerron Boots Ennis. You got Danny Garcia. Focus on those types of fights. You come up here messing with me, and I'm knocking you out. So that's what Jermell Charlo responded to Terence Crawford. Two-time welterweight world champion, superstar boxer Showtime Shawn Porter, who most recently fought Terence Crawford. And Terence Crawford, that took place November 20th, in which he stopped Shawn Porter, dropping Shawn Porter twice in the 10th round, ultimately seeing Shawn Porter's father, trainer, and manager Kenny Porter wave the white towel, saw enough. So that's never been done. So he stops Shawn Porter. And Shawn Porter, he responds to all of this, and Shawn Porter believes that Terence Crawford will beat Jermell Charlo, okay? Shawn Porter believes that Jermell Charlo, has a lot of flaws. So he believes Jermell Charlo has a lot of flaws. He believes that Terence Crawford will beat Jermell Charlo. Okay, so he stated that the best welterweights would beat Jermell Charlo, including Terence Crawford. Okay, now Jermell Charlo is very big. Okay, at 6 feet tall with a 74-inch arm reach. He probably rehydrates well into 165, maybe even 170. Okay. Jermell Charlo has a lot of power. We know Jermell Charlo has the ability to box because he's shown us that. His initial thoughts on Jermell Charlo were he was the pure boxer, and his identical twin brother, who's a 2-division undefeated world champion, Jermell Charlo, is the thumper. Okay, and so with that said, he was seen as the pure boxer, and Jermell Charlo was seen as the thumper. Okay, he was the big puncher. Well, Jermell Charlo, he parted ways with Ronnie Shields, legendary Hall of Fame, iconic trainer of the year. He parted ways with Ronnie Shields, and he got with Derrick James, who also trains. We know Derrick James trains Errol Spence Jr. as well. And once he got with Derrick James, well, Jermell Charlo, he flipped the switch. Okay, he suddenly became a massive puncher. He started knocking people out. Okay, he started sitting down on his punches more, but he's still showing us the ability to be able to switch from the pure boxer to the thumper. Okay, so he became the thumper. Okay, so now he has 34 wins, no 1 loss, 1 draw, 18 wins by way of knockout. Like I said, he's 6 feet tall with a 74-inch arm reach. So Terence Crawford, in my opinion, just simply doesn't have an advantage over Jermell Charlo. He may be quicker than Jermell Charlo, but once he packs on that weight and starts to get bigger, he is going to slow down himself. Okay, so you're going to see Terence Crawford have to get acclimated, especially Terence Crawford talking about going straight away right into a fight with Jermell Charlo, his first fight at 154. That's a 7-pound jump. When Terence Crawford fought at 147, yes, he went straight away into a fight with Jeff Horn, okay? And, he was able to, beat Jeff Horn and stop Jeff Horn, absolutely, but Jeff Horn is not seen to be a very skilled, talented fighter, okay? Yes, Jeff Horn was coming off of a win over Manny Pacquiao, which was very shocking, okay? And at the time when he fought Terence Crawford, he was undefeated, okay? But Jeff Horn is not as big as Jermell Charlo. Okay, Jeff Horn is 5'9" with a 68-inch arm reach. He's not even bigger than Errol Spence Jr. He's not bigger than Boots Ennis. He's not even bigger than Kell Brook. Okay, so yes, he's a big, strong guy, but he's not bigger than those guys. Jermell Charlo is far bigger than Errol Spence, and he's far bigger than, well, not far bigger than, but he's clearly bigger than Errol Spence, Boots Ennis, Kell Brook. He's clearly bigger than those guys. Okay, and so that's a difference. Okay, so. Yes, and then Terence Crawford, he went on to fight, Jose Benavidez. Now, Jose Benavidez Jr. Now, here's the thing, right? When he fought Jose Benavidez, who is 5'11" with a 71-inch arm reach, the first three quarters of that fight, Terence Crawford, he was winning the fight, but you can see he clearly was struggling to gauge the distance and the range of Jose Benavidez Jr. Okay, because of the size, the reach, and the jab and the skill set of Jose Benavidez. Now, Jose Benavidez is not as skilled and not as talented as Jermell Charlo. Okay, so you can see Terence Crawford having to think his way through the fight because of the arm reach. And then when you see Terence Crawford fight against Kell Brook, and Kell Brook's jab give him problems, his technical skill set. And Kell Brook wasn't the same guy. He hadn't fought a welterweight in 3.5 years. He had suffered 2 major eye injuries, hadn't had a high-profile fight going into the fight with Terence Crawford, right? And he used his jab. And Terence Crawford, who has the ability to switch from southpaw to orthodox, he had to make adjustments because the fight only lasted 4 rounds. Now, but you have to look at the little nuances that took place in the fight itself, okay? So it only went to 4 rounds. But Terence Crawford was losing the first 3.5 rounds, okay? 2.5 rounds, okay? And then he had to make the adjustment out of the orthodox stance to the southpaw stance to be able to beat Kell Brook, because Kell Brook's jab and timing was bothering Terence Crawford, just like Jose Benavidez Jr. Then you look at the fight with Igor Kavalauskas. His timing was bothering Terence Crawford. Now you insert Jermell Charlo, that has great timing, has a great jab, who's much bigger than Terence Crawford, who's much stronger than Terence Crawford, and he has the ability to take Terence Crawford's punches. You've never seen Jermell Charlo wobble, hurt on the canvas. You've never seen that, okay? He's durable. So with that said, now Jermell Charlo also knows he's the physically more imposing figure, okay? So now factor in that Jermell Charlo understands this going into a fight with Terence Crawford, and he may normally come in at 165. Now he knows Terence Crawford is a much smaller guy. He may come in at 170, okay? He's used to carrying that weight around. Terence Crawford is not, okay? And so with that said, yes, Terence Crawford has knocked out his last 9 opponents, but I have to disagree with Shawn Porter to think that he can beat Jermell Charlo or clearly beat Jermell Charlo. Now, Terence Crawford is skilled, talented, but Terence Crawford is going on 35 in September. Terence Crawford has shown us that when he fights in the orthodox stance, he's not as effective as he once was when he was younger, okay? Now you see in the orthodox stance, he struggled with the pressure and the strength and the aggression of Shawn Porter, who was 5'6", 5'7", with a 68-inch arm reach, okay, and is not as physically imposing as Jermell Charlo, okay, not as big and strong, and don't have the technical skill set. So those things play a major part, in my opinion, and I think that that's gonna that will be the difference. Great big men beat great little men. Jermell Charlo, I believe, will beat Brian Castano. Now I know a lot of people look and say, well, Blue, Brian Castano is only 5'6", 5'7", with a 68-inch arm reach, a 67-inch arm reach. But Brian Castano, that Argentinian style, it disrupts your timing, okay? Like, for instance, Marcos El Chino Maidana is nowhere near as talented, skilled, or ring IQ as Floyd Mayweather. But in the 2 fights that he fought with Floyd Mayweather, he timed Floyd Mayweather better than most fighters, most skilled fighters, okay? In the second fight, yeah, he was getting outboxed, but even in that fight, when he caught Floyd Mayweather, when Floyd Mayweather tried to pull counter and he caught him, how many people you saw time Floyd Mayweather's pull counter like that and rock Floyd Mayweather to the point where Floyd Mayweather froze up and his feet locked and his arms locked? If there was more time in the round, he may have dropped Floyd Mayweather. In the first fight with Floyd Mayweather, he kept disrupting the timing and forcing Floyd Mayweather back on the ropes, okay? It's just the style. You got Sergio Martinez, you know, Marcos Maidana. Their style is to disrupt your timing because they're not physically, athletically gifted like that. So their style is to disrupt your timing, okay? Timing beats speed, and that's what they work on. So Brian Castano's timing and his ability to disrupt what Jermell Charlo was doing was bothering Jermell Charlo and forcing Jermell Charlo back to the ropes. In a rematch, I don't think that's going to be the case. And even if you look at that fight in the center of the ring, Brian Castano's used to carrying that weight around, okay? He's used to fighting bigger guys. He beat Errol Spence in the amateurs, okay? So Brian Castano's a very good boxer. The thing is, he has a lot of, he works on timing. Their styles, and Terence Crawford's style is completely different. And even in that fight, you saw there was times where Brian Castano looked like he was on the verge of getting stopped by Jermell Charlo. You understand? Now, your first fight at 154, if you're Terence Crawford, are you just going to have the ability to deal with Jermell Charlo's punching power when we saw guys like Yuriorkis Gamboa, who are little guys, or Igor Kavalauskas and Shawn Porter wobble you? You know, Jermell Charlo is a completely different beast when it comes to that. And so I think it would be a great fight. And if Terence Crawford can pull it off, it cements his legacy and history for sure. For sure. Okay. And then he becomes the A side in negotiations with Errol Spence at 154. So if he can pull it off, he'd be undisputed in 2 separate weight classes, beat the best junior middleweight, arguably of all time, top 5 best junior middleweights of all time, Jermell Charlo. Now, you know, obviously Roy Jones and guys of that nature, you know, they were the best, you know, but he's top 5, at least top 10, top 7 best junior middleweights of all time. So especially he beats Brian Castano, becomes undisputed. You can't say nothing bad about this dude, man. And Jermell Charlo is versatile. He showed you in the Jason Rosario fight that he has the ability to move around and box. He could turn that switch, but he also can be aggressive if he need to. He has respectable head movement, tight defense. That's a tall task for Terence Crawford. But Shawn Porter believes he could do it. He says he see a lot of flaws in Jermell Charlo. We got to see how that unfolds and plays out. But that's all I got for y'all. Make sure you hit the like button. Drop a comment in the comment section. Let me know what y'all think. Y'all already know what it is. It's your boy Blue, Blue Blood Sports TV. Hate, like, comment, and subscribe. If you haven't subscribed, hit the subscribe button. Hit the like button. Hit the bell icon to get all the new notifications. Follow me on Instagram at Blue Blood Sports TV, all one word. Y'all already know what it is. Shout out to the entire LDBC. Shout out to New Media. Shout out to Black Media Row. Make sure you like and share these videos. That's all I got for y'all. Peace.
Oh, it is your boy Jada Kiss. Make sure you check out Blue Blood Sports TV. It's going down.